What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to rank every new game I've played so far. I got 16 games for you, and these are games that I feel I've put enough time in. There are some games that did come out this year that I have played, but I've maybe played 1, 2, 3 hours or so, just not enough for me to, I feel like, put on this list. So these are games that I've played enough to at least make a decision on them. I think that's the best way of saying it. So let's jump right in, and let's start with number 16. Let's start with the worst one. And at the bottom here, we definitely have some bad ones. So number 16 is Redfall, and this is the worst game that I've played this year, I think by a lot. You look at Gollum, but I didn't play that, so thank God I dodged that bullet. But Redfall, to me, just not good. I don't think it is like one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. I've played some pretty bad games in my day. I do think this is easily the weakest game of this year. There's just nothing inspiring about it at all. The AI I find to be very, very laughable. I like to watch people roast this game. I watched Angry Joe do a review of it. At the end of the day, this game is gone, and there was a lot of mistakes made to get this game to where it was, and I'm disgusted that the team that made some amazing, amazing games made this yet again, as we've now known through leaks and stuff. About 70% of the team is no longer even there, so it wasn't really the team that made the good games that made this one. Coming in at number 15 is also a pretty bad one, but just not as bad, Forspoken. Now, I was given this for a review. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Maybe I'll throw it out there for the games that I was given. I'll just say it just for transparency's sake. They did give me this game. I appreciate it. I don't think this is one of the worst games I've ever played, but this is a game that you play several hours of. You play like 5, 6, 7 hours, and you feel like you kind of got, what the game is. I can't really stand the dialogue stuff. Now, I don't think it's as bad as what was initially framed on Twitter and stuff of, I think a lot of it was kind of out of context. I mean, look, again, the dialogue is not good. It is a lot of cringy kind of lines. The performances of them are kind of hit or miss. I don't think they're always bad, but they sometimes are bad. They're not as bad as what I saw on Twitter, but they are pretty below average. And then just the open world and what you do just didn't get me. These are games, Forspoken and Redfall, they literally just did not keep me engaged and also just were not good. And that's why they find themselves so low on this list. Now, shockingly, but maybe not shockingly, number 14 is actually Atomic Heart. Now, I want to make a distinction here. I literally think that Forspoken and Redfall are the two bad games that I've played so far this year. Okay, so from 14 on, this is low for sure. Atomic Heart's low, but it's not a bad game. I actually liked it. I liked the opening of it quite a bit. Very BioShock, kind of vibes. It's fun. It's beautiful. There is some cool story elements. The reason I guess I'd put it here is it didn't keep me till the end. I played about half of it. Now, again, not beating it, sure, but I think I played enough to form an opinion of it. This was just not a game that hooked me. It was just not a game that made me want to play through the entire game. And that's honestly, for that simple reason, that's why it's number 14 on my list. Number 13 is Chia. I quite like this game. Again, this game kind of finds itself on the low end simply because I didn't beat it. But this is honestly a very relaxing kind of game. I love it visually. I love just kind of going around and almost turning your brain off. A lot of collectibles, a lot of just, smaller, not really trivial, but maybe they're trivial tasks that you do in the game, but it's a game that you just kind of sit back, relax, Zelda-like a little bit, at least with your stamina. I like this game. Again, these are games that I like. It's just we're going to get to games that I really, really liked. Number 12, I'm putting Street Fighter 6. So I couldn't put this any higher just because I haven't played too much on it, but I did play enough to understand that I really like it. And, I played Street Fighter 5 leading into 6, and I'm a fan. I'm legitimately a fan. Now, Diablo and Crash and Final Fantasy have taken me away from Street Fighter, and I honestly don't know when I'll go back, probably July or August. It's an addicting game. It's a game that takes skill, but this is easily the best one for, I'd say, like new players, beginners such as myself. It looks beautiful. I've played several of the different modes in this game. This is an all-around very quality game. It's just, okay, again, fighting games are not my forte. I'm not the most into them, so when I compare this game to other games that have come out, even if the quality quality of Street Fighter maybe is even better than some of the other games. It's just I don't feel like I'm going to play it all that much. It's not my kind of game as much as other games are. Number 11 is SpongeBob the Cosmic Shake. Love this game. Love it. I mean, look, it's limited, and that's why it's number 11, but this is a really fun game. I'm really happy we got this game. I was given the review code for this game, got to play it a few weeks ahead of time, and that gave me time to kind of just go through it. You know, you had Forspoken and Dead Space that kind of came out around that time. Played it with my daughter. My daughter watched. I'd kind of hand it off to her back and forth. A ton of fun. Honestly, a ton of fun, and I'm glad we live in an era where you can do remakes of old SpongeBob games, but also do brand new ones. I think this is a quality game. I don't know if you'll remember it too much by the end of the year because it's nothing, massively special compared to some of the higher games, let's say, on this list. But again, I'm not going to complain about it at all. This is an overall solid game, and I want a new SpongeBob game every few years if possible. And I think we're going to get that. Number 10 is Diablo 4. A lot of fun. Just haven't put too much time into it. I don't know if it's a game that I will like. Well, at the same time, the game is so addicting that even the time that I have put, I'm sounding like I've barely played it. I've probably put like 25 hours or so. I've put a pretty okay amount of time in Diablo 4. So I think that is obviously the game's biggest draw, and I've said it before too. The gameplay loop, being able to play as the multiple classes. I'm playing as the sorcerer, but I do intend, if I ever actually beat the sorcerer stuff, I do intend to go back as another class and try it again. Now, coming in at number 9 is a game you probably have never heard of, but it's called The Wreck, and I actually did a review of this on my channel if you guys want to check out a little bit, more of it. I love this game, and I'm not saying it because, and I'll say it right now, like they did give me a review code. They reached out to me, and I actually played, I think, the demo of the game several months ago. This is a game that is kind of inspired by What Remains of Edith Finch, Unfinished Swan, like those kind of games. Now, those are some of my favorite games of all time. Those two, actually, right there. The Wreck is a game made by a small studio, and the game, actually notoriously, they did a blog post where this game sold really, and I mean like really bad, like a couple thousand units this game sold, which is really sad because I think at the core here, you got a really good story, and that's what I want to emphasize, and that's why I'm putting it at number 9. Honestly, some of the story elements of this game shocked me. I love the art style to it visually. I think it's really good. The voice acting is, I think, really good, and then the story and the twists of the story and the emotions that the story does, I think are honestly really good. So just to kind of give this game a shout out, I think it deserves it, and I'm pretty upset that the game, I'm sure they're more upset, but the game, again, did not sell well at all. I loved it. I think it deserves a pretty high spot on the list here. Coming in at number 8, I'm putting Crash Team Rumble. So this is like the guilty pleasure one. So when I was talking about Street Fighter and saying, a game maybe lower quality, I don't know. I mean, you could definitely have an argument. I think Crash is pretty high quality. It's strangely addicting. It's strangely awesome. I love it, but I get that very few people on planet Earth care or are playing the game, right? Because the player count, I think, is very low. But again, it is a guilty pleasure, and I think it's a lot of fun. So I gotta put it rather high because I'm kind of into it. Now, will I be into it a month or 2 months from now? Maybe not, right? The repetitiveness may get to it, and that's why I'm wary of not putting it higher, right? I think this is a pretty good spot for it, that because I love it so much and I'm playing it so much, it deserves 8, but like if I put it in the top 5, I don't know, it could fall off in like a few weeks and I'll feel bad about it. So I think it deserves this spot right here. Number 7, I'm going Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now, this has actually gone all over the place on my listings. I did one, I think, about the quarter mark of the year, right after Resident Evil released, I think. I had Resident Evil higher, but yet again, other games have come out since then, so that's kind of stopped it. But this is a great game. This is a game that I think about like long after the game comes out, and that to me helps it. And there's another example actually I have of this, of a game kind of quite high. Well, really all of them, right? The more you think about the game, the more impact the game has on you. Now, I liked RE4, the original, but I didn't think of it as like one of the greatest games of all time, like many other people did. So playing 4's remake, it's like, all right, prove it to me. Prove it to modern day, 26-year-old Alex. Prove it to me that you can do it. And it did. I mean, honestly, it's a really amazing game. beautiful, but the story, the characters, I mean, I knew the beats and stuff of what was going to happen, but I think this is an excellent, honestly, remake. They did it again. Capcom's been on fire recently. Sadly, Exoprimal, I think, might stop that, but, regardless, they've been on a good streak. Number 6, I'm putting Hogwarts Legacy. I feel good with this. I wanted to put it high because I still do think about it, and I think about, wow, it actually happened. Like, we actually got and it feels like years ago that this game released, even though it's been like 4 months from when I'm recording this. The highs stick out to me. The highs stick out. There are some story elements that I think are rather good. There's some characters that I think are good. The combat, I think, is excellent. And then the atmosphere, right? Being in Hogwarts, the music, the castle, the surrounding area, I think is all absolutely excellent, and I'm probably never gonna forget that. Now, of course, there's several things with Hogwarts I'll never forget, like the lead up, right? Just being such a big part of it, and that being just so special to me. That's always gonna maybe be a biasness with the game, I suppose. At the same time, I want to be fair. It's not in my top 5. It's not my favorite game this year because it's just way too uneven. I think the highs of this game carry it, and the lows really do hurt it. The repetitiveness, the game kind of being just a generic open world game, but with Hogwarts, Wizarding World paint over it. So there are definitely some weaknesses. I think it's again, I try to keep it in perspective. This was the first game from the studio even remotely close to this scale. So I think this was an excellent first attempt. And then you think to what they can do for the second attempt. I think it can be honest, like that one could be legendary. That one can be something truly special. There is a lot that is special with Hogwarts, but it's specific. It's specific things, and the rest of it isn't so great. So I think it deserves number 6 here. Number 5, now what could be shocking here is you could say, oh my God, you're going to put all these games over Hogwarts. Well, get ready for this first one. Dead Island 2. I'm putting Dead Island 2 over Hogwarts, and I'll tell you why. Because it honestly shocked me. Now, this one I did get the code for. Hogwarts I got the code for, but remember, I got a code for it one day before the game came out. So I was kind of in line with everybody else playing it. For Dead Island, got to play it a little bit early. I think maybe they gave it to me, again, a day before, or maybe even the day the game came out. This game is seriously good, and I will go to my grave saying that. I know I've convinced a couple of the community members here to at least try the game, because I legitimately think this is a good game. I think the story is way better than it has any right to be honest with you. It's funny, it's clever, it's I don't know, like I thought it wasn't gonna be all that good, specifically the story. The rest of it I was kind of an open mind, but the story of Dead Island 1 just never really got me, so I wasn't expecting much. I thought it was fantastic. I think the visuals of this game were great. I think the locations were awesome, and they were diverse, and fighting the zombies with the different weapons, and I mean, honestly, like, I'm thinking back to it now, I'm thinking this game rocked. I think this game is one of the biggest surprises of the year. I struggle to say it is the biggest because my number 1 game was a stealth drop, so that probably would be the biggest, but, in terms of where I thought Dead Island 2 would be, to then saying it's in my top 5, like, that's nuts. Honestly, that's nuts, because go look at my videos before the game came out, and you would not have thought, I would say something like that. Coming in at number 4, I'm going to say Final Fantasy 16. I feel good about this because the game it's uneven. It's definitely uneven, and that's what stops, I think, from being in like the top 2 or 3, right? When this game is on, the game, I think, can't be beaten. And I don't know, if I do a review for the game before I made this video, so I might just be repeating things, but I'm going to stand by that statement as probably the strongest thing to say about Final Fantasy 16. When this game is like elite, when this game has those boss fights, but not even, I mean, the boss fights, yes, you can go look at videos of the boss fights and you can say, how can any game beat it? And the answer is they can't. But also there are some story beats in this game, and even some side quests that are surprisingly good, but there's some story beats, there's some characters that's like, yeah, when they're going for it, the game is absolutely unbeatable. It's a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10 to me. But when the game is not going for it, there is a lot of downtime. There's a lot of things that I just don't think work. There is a lot of awful side quests. There's some awful main quests, to be honest with you. So it's a very uneven game, in my opinion. But when it's at its best, you can't beat it. So I think it has to be rather high on this list, because overall, I think of this game as really, really good. I don't think of the negative parts. I think of the positive parts first and then say, oh man, if only they didn't have those negative things, then this game could have been one of the greatest games ever created. So, you know what I mean? So that's how I kind of think of it. So that's why it's so high. Number 3, I'm going to put the Dead Space remake. And I think this game has also, much like Resident Evil, this game has shifted all over the place. I can't promise it'll be in the top 3 or top 5 or whatever when the end of the year comes. But here's the reason. Honestly, it's because I think about it. It's because to this day, every few days, maybe once a week or something, I think, wow, what a remake. Like, they absolutely nailed Dead Space. I love Dead Space. I love Dead Space 1, 2, 3. I don't hate as much as other people. I definitely don't like it, I would say. But 1 and 2, I think, are phenomenal games. I've played them many, many times back in the day. I have great memories with them. And even though I'm kind of a baby when it comes to horror games, I think they just absolutely nailed it in terms of the tone, in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the combat, the new stuff, right? Because you had to add some new stuff. You had to have Isaac talk. That could have gone so bad, could have gone so sideways, and it didn't. It honestly didn't. So I think of this as honestly one of the best remakes ever to happen, because you're already doing it on one of the best games to ever come out, which is a lot like Resident Evil 4. It's just I have a stronger bond, I'd say, to Dead Space than I do RE4, right? So I would say similar things. It's it's a masterpiece game that you're just remaking, and I think they did an amazing job at that. So I think it deserves a pretty high spot on this list. Number 2, I'm going Jedi Survivor. I'm doing it. Jedi Survivor is pretty high. I don't know if it'll stay this high, but again, this is another one that I think it hasn't been that many months. It's been like 2 months since I beat it or whatever, but this is a game I think to, and I think, all right, the story, when it's firing, and I think, I've watched the story many times. I actually did a story explained on my channel where I went through the entire thing, so I think I got a pretty good grasp of the story, and I've watched it so much. I actually think it's really, really good. I think it's a little uneven at times, but I think when it's on, it is much like Final Fantasy. It is extremely strong with the characters, with just the moments that happen in the story. Then you got the gameplay. I think the gameplay is awesome. To me, it's just really the parkouring, the platforming, let's say. There's some areas where it's just too... That's really my biggest, I guess, gripe with this game. I know there's some people that say that that's a non-issue for them at all. I totally get that. I think it's fun. I think moving around as Cal and solving like platforming puzzles are fun. Sometimes it just happens way too long. Just way too long. There's some quests in the game where you have to go somewhere, talk to somebody, just to then go to another planet, talk to somebody, then to go back to the planet you were just at. So there's a couple of things. I'm only saying that because it's like those are the things I think that stop this game from being my favorite game of the year. But it's my second favorite, so it's pretty darn close. Number 1, I'm not moving it. A game needs to come in here and it needs to shock me like HiFi Rush shocked me. That's the only way to beat HiFi Rush. And I'm kind of going into every... Well, okay, I'm not actively thinking about it. But when I do think, all right, well, where does this game rank, right? When I'm done beating it, where does the game rank in all the games I've played so far? I do compare it immediately to HiFi Rush. That's the first game I go to, especially, obviously, if it's at the top, because I just love HiFi Rush so much. It shocked the living daylights out of me. We had heard about it a few days before, like through leaks and stuff, and we were starting to kind of get a sense of like this rhythm game, right? Like, what was it? Then it just was announced. It dropped that day. I played it and I was like, holy dear Jesus, this game is amazing. And then I beat it in like 2.5 days. And I think about it all the time. And here's the thing though, I think about just how surprisingly good it was, because the gameplay itself, I think, is so clever and just so fun. I think the characters are just so much fun, but then also the story, I think, is excellent. The music is so good. The visuals, now I'm a huge sucker for these kind of games. So it's maybe an unfair advantage over like Hogwarts and Dead Space. If you give me a game that looks like HiFi Rush, I'm probably going to give it a better shot than other games, just because I love that kind of visual. But look, you can't just sell me on the visual. You don't get the game at number 1 right now just by the visuals. The visuals were a huge part of it. It's always good to look at, but the characters, the acting, the story, the gameplay, the music, the tone, everything about this game I thought was a 10 out of 10. I mean, this is my favorite game of the year. I think probably by a lot. I'd say there's a pretty big gap between Jedi and HiFi Rush, and then we'll see what happens, because Starfield, Spider-Man, Alan Wake, those are probably the the 3 games. There's others, maybe like a Dragon, right? There's a couple of them. There's some games I think can dethrone it, but we'll see, because I'm going in. I'll be honest, I'm going in with a biasness. I got HiFi Rush at number 1. I kind of want to keep it there, but I'm willing to give these other games a chance, and we'll see what they can do. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.